Hello, my name is Andrew Tilling. I'm the CEO and founder of The Hive. And what I'd like to do is just take you through this strategy rollout and readiness report so that you can see the value of the tool. You can get a sense of where we're coming from with our approach. And if it's of interest to you, then you'll know whether or not you want to book a call to talk things through with your report. Now, what I thought I'd do is I'll give you an overview of how the tool works from the perspective of a client who approached us some time ago. They were an engineering leadership team who was struggling because they'd gone through a number of different acquisitions. They had a new strategy rollout to bring the stack all together and create a new unified offering across the diverse global markets. Now, you can hear more about this particular case study in episode 1 of our Leadership Journeys series with the Hive, which is episode 1's called The False Peak, which is that sense of victory that you get once you've got strategy signed off, and then you've discovered you're actually just at base camp and you've got all this mountain to climb. So this is where this leader was when he reached out to us. So let me take you through the answers from their perspective as I imagine them, and then we'll see what the report generates, and then I'll take you through what that conversation would look like should you reach out to us. So here we go. I've put the answers in already, but let me just talk you through my thinking. So how clear are you on the strategic outcome that you are trying to deliver? Well, I think we're really clear. We've got a good sense of this global stack that we're looking to pull together, unified stack to global markets. We're clear about where it is that we want to get to. No problem there. How do you feel your leadership peers are on that same outcome? How clear are they? Actually, I think less clear than me. Not because they don't understand what we're trying to do, but they don't understand what it's going to take to get us there. So I think they're less clear than I am. Thinking about the people affected by this rollout, how satisfied do you feel they are with how things currently work today? Yeah, I'm thinking about my engineers. Okay, I've got a number of different teams from a number of different acquisitions. I don't think they're particularly happy, not because of the situation, but because they're just going through change right now. All right. So they're in that place where they've gone through significant change to the acquisition. They're still trying to find their feet. And now there's this huge, great big project looming. So how clear are you on the steps needed to deliver a first and meaningful win? I am not clear at all. I've put a 1 down there. I've started the stock take to get a sense of, what we've got, who we've got, what's working, what's not, what's, being used the most, all that kind of thing. But I am not clear then what we're going to do with that to start moving it towards where it is that we need to be. And therefore, if I look at the next question, I'm also not confident that the organization can execute those first steps smoothly because I don't know what they are yet. If I can get through the stock take, then I can start putting that together. But also, I think that we're not really organized as an organization, and so much is resting on the engineers. I'm putting that as a 1. How willing do you think people will be to engage in the real work of this change once it begins? Well, they kind of want to make things happen, but I think they're motivated at the moment because they're trying to justify their jobs. We haven't communicated that there's any threat for people's jobs, but it's also not something I can promise that once we've structured everything, that we're going to be able to keep everybody on. So there's a tension in the air around that. So I think they're motivated, but for the wrong reasons. What concerns sit behind these scores? It's given me a few options here. I've selected conflicting priorities, limiting capacity, low morale for the reasons I mentioned earlier, unclear ownership of the various different projects and tasks because we haven't really defined those. And also I've put other in because I think that the recent acquisitions have yet to come together as a team to really address these challenges. And then it's asked me for 1 or 2 more sentences. Now, this is basically about context. And what I put in here is going to really inform the tool to help the tool respond with a bit more story around what's happening for you and what's happening within your organization. So what I put in here is I'm still doing a stock take of the new technology And to blend everything into one stack is going to be a concern. Many of the engineers in the teams are wedded to old systems that will need to be sunsetted, and the business is still dependent on big clients who use those old products. There's a lot to sort out. The product marketing team are already starting conversations with customers that I'm not sure that we can deliver on. So sales and marketing are writing checks that I'm unsure that the engineering team can cash. I'm going to put in my email address and click send. Now, a few moments later, you get an email to your inbox. But what happens is, in the meantime, is we put it through our AI tool. And our AI tool looks at everything through the change equation. Now, the change equation is, well, it's come from Beckard and Gleicher. And it's basically, if you get clear on what the dissatisfaction is with the status quo, so how unhappy people are with how things are right now, that's a huge motivator for change, right? But also, what's the vision? So is there a vision of a positive possibility more than just the absence of pain in the present situation? So our vision is, to keep my job? No, that's not really clear. But if the vision is of how great this new stack is going to be and how it's going to solve lots of different challenges and enable us to create many more new tools and systems in the future that are integrated and deliver better value as a result, well, that's a compelling vision. First steps. What are the first steps in the direction of the vision? Have we got those clear, and are they easy? Because the ease of the first steps make it easier to start moving towards that change. Now, if the product of these three is greater than the resistance to change, then change is likely to take place. If not, we've got some work to do. But it becomes about being clear about the status quo and why that's a problem. It's about being clear about the vision of what we're trying to achieve and creating some shared first steps that we can start building momentum on. But more of that later. What this comes back with, this is an email that we got back. And this is the Strategy Rollout Readiness Report. And this is where I need my glasses. So I'm just going to pop those in. What it does is, you can see it kind of gives you a bit of a summary of where things are right now. So it's saying clear that I'm clear about the outcome that I'm trying to achieve, and that people aren't happy with how things are. Great. So it's echoing back what things that I've said to you. It's highlighting this key thing here that overall you have a compelling why now, some basic alignment at leadership level, but a high risk gap between intention and executable, believable first steps. So I think that really summarizes that really well. But here's the key thing, where we are exposed. So if this is where we are and where we want to be, this is the key obstacles that we've got along the way. So solo climber, high personal clarity, peers lagging. We see this a lot at the Hive, that somebody will come to us and will say, look, this is what I'm trying to achieve. And I'll say, well, how are your peers doing? Whereabouts are they? And it's like, well, actually, I'm not convinced they really understand what's going on. Or, yeah, they're still quite unsure about the vision, or they haven't really thought about how much it's going to take to deliver. And that's no surprise, because, I mean, you're the one who's searching and trying to explore strategy, execution, and rollout, right? But few things to be aware of when you've got this strong push forward without a clear sense of other people's responsibilities. What you put yourself at risk of is peer drift, where we've got alignment in the beginning, but over time, those peers start, well, reprioritizing, thinking about protecting their own KPIs. It kind of makes sense, right? But if the strategy becomes less of a priority in their world, it becomes much more difficult to engage others within their team, even if resources are committed on paper, that it's a priority in their team, that may be less of the case. So being aware of that peer drift, being aware of peers turning away from the difficult conversations, or simply being quiet when the problems arise, that can be a bit of a red flag. So how do you get ahead of that, being aware of that? But yeah, we've got pressure building, particularly regarding the legacy technology. And, there's that big, strong case for change. But while the teams are criticizing the old ways of working, when actually asked to get on and change the tools or the processes, then there's hesitation. They talk about dependencies, unclear about who owns what. It's that kind of thing. It's like, we've got to change, but actually, I'm not quite sure what my role is in order to move this forward. And I don't want to take on too much, because then I expose myself. Foggy first steps, no clear first meaningful win. This is such an important element. I think particularly around teams that have come together from different diverse environments, or if you pull together a cross-functional team, if the first step isn't clear, you're in a real risk, because everyone's still being pulled in different directions by old goals. And unless you've got something that says, look, what we're doing here is actually working and is meaningful, then the pressure of those old goals is, it's going to start overwhelming the want or desire to move forward on a project which doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So you've got to get those early wins in quick. So if you've got a foggy first step, that's going to be a problem. So, and you'll see it play out with things like roadmaps that change month to month, conflicting views on products or clients to prioritize, and so on and so forth. Now, capability uncertainty, it's pulled out as well, which is my low confidence in delivery, which can then start cascading across the rest of the organization as well. Being really careful of plan B options, working in parallel. If that doesn't work, I still want to make sure that we've covered ourselves in this areas and those areas. So, we've got to make sure that we've got that capability in place. In fact, I think this is one of the key elements. There's something I talk about in the strategy execution video series, is this sense of collective efficacy, that once a team begins to understand that working together, they can achieve great things together, everything begins to move. But until that's established and in place, there's going to be doubts and concerns and lack of trust, which can play out just in the way that you organize yourselves to get going. So a good way to think about it is the illusion of momentum builds momentum. So if you've got a goal that you can work towards that is achievable, that everybody can be involved in, then clearly communicating and celebrating that you've got that win can really create that sense of, hey, do you know what? We can do this. We're making progress. Things are moving. And it's going to be those communications that are going to be key, certainly in the early stages, to really build that momentum in the direction you want to go. Energy drag, low expected engagement in the hard work. Why this matters: if people are already fatigued or skeptical, I think that's crucial. We've already talked about how people have already gone through change through the acquisitions. So now we're talking about change, not only with the people that we're working with, but the products we're working on, the priorities in the organization, the culture of the organization. There's a lot of change to manage. And if that starts looking like change fatigue, then we're going to have some challenges arise. So be aware of that, the energy of your team and how you manage it. So how does that feel in real life? There's, the AI takes a bit of a stab in terms of how you're feeling right now, but also articulating it in terms of some of the context or risks that we see that's going on. But it does highlight that these are predictable challenges in complex organizations that have grown through this situation. But how do we resolve them? Well, the key tenets of our approach, so the storm process here, we talk them through with you just here at the end of this report. Defining the outcome and current reality clearly. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? Make sure that we're all aiming for the same finish line. But if you can define also a common starting point, so that sums up all the different dynamics of where people are right now. So the shared sense of situation, you can really create a gap that people can start collaborating on to close. Then we've got to align the team around priorities and ownership. So there's going to be obstacles and pains that you're going to have to overcome, and creating working groups to address those challenges, cross-functional teams. That's going to be key to making sure that we're driving forward, but also recognizing who's responsible for each of those projects. Because, accountability matters, but what's important is that shared responsibility is going to be crucial. So while somebody may own the project, recognizing that we have that shared responsibility to deliver on it means that they're more comfortable asking and pulling on various different resources. Exploring options and designing the way through together. I think this is crucial for this particular case. We ran a 48-hour storm process session with this engineering team. I really clarified what the leadership responsibility was. It was the engineering leaders we pulled together. And, it was amazing as we worked through the different challenges, highlighted the different obstacles, reframed them, come up with some ideas, but the way the shared responsibility emerged, that people would, somebody would come up with an idea that would not only solve their problems, but others as well. And then suddenly the people wanted to be in on it. So these cross-functional teams started emerging that made that progress, that momentum possible because there was that shared responsibility in place. Once we'd done that, we were able to build a living roadmap or a team charter, we call it. And we turn this around overnight. So we have a document that the whole team can get behind that defines who's responsible for what the key milestones are going to be, who's resourcing the job, all those kinds of things. And so we've got clarity on how we're moving forward together. And that document then gets updated and collaborated on as we keep moving forward. But it means that we are all on the same page, crucial in cross-functional teams. And finally, staying embedded until the discipline sticks. So with this team, this was around regular, consistent coaching sessions as a team to help them to stay accountable to each other, to update each other, and also celebrate the wins together. But it also meant that if people were struggling, they were able to re-resource appropriately, jiggle things around a bit in order to make sure it was going to be possible in the end. So, this gives you a sense of how the Storm process works, but also how this report is pretty good at triggering thinking that can highlight areas of risk for your strategy rollout that you may not have thought of just yet. That in itself is worthwhile, of course. But if you want to talk it through with me, and we can talk about some of the issues that are coming up, or you can say, actually, it's not quite like this, it's more like this. Have you got any thoughts? Really happy to do that. So you can book a strategy session with me. I'll come on the call. We'll talk through your report. You can give me a more accurate sense of where things are and where it is that you want to be. We'll highlight some of the obstacles and give you some suggestions about how you can approach it. And, if that turns into a working relationship, then great. But what I'm most interested in is establishing a relationship with you now as you begin this journey so that you've got that clarity and support and you understand where the extra support is, where you need it, when it comes to leading cross-functional teams that perhaps you don't have any direct authority over, but you still need to be able to have the strong influence in order to drive them through to completion, and that need to be able to support and resource them appropriately in order to see things through. So do feel free to click on that button now and book a session with me and go fill in that report and see what comes back. I'm really looking forward to talking it through with you. And if you're interested in more, we've also got the Hives Research and Insights Library. So there's a number of different articles in there that you may find useful, but also don't forget the strategy execution video series, Leadership Journeys, which you can find all kinds of different insights and resources to help you truly elevate your thinking and understand what makes strategy rollout successful in today's transformation age. I'll see you soon.